Alisa Hope Wagner, and I am the author of Florina of Rodesh. Now, Florina of Rodesh is a fantasy fiction novel. That means it's a made-up world. I had to make up a whole new world with new plants, new animals, and new people groups. And so the people will be a little bit like you, but they will be different. For example, Florina has horns that grow out of her head, and she uses these horns to carry stuff. And so there will be new words that you will hear, but you don't have to worry, and don't try to learn everything at once. Just read the story and listen, and your ears will start getting used to the new atmosphere, the new setting, and the new words. So I'm going to read today the prologue of Florina of Rodesh. So before I start, there are 6 moons in Rodesh, and each moon is a different color. It's the color of the rainbow, and they each stay in the sky for 7 years. Florina was born in the green moon, and then she lived through the blue moon, and now she's beginning the violet moon. So she's 14 years old because she was born in the first green moon, and that's 7 years. And then she lived through the indigo moon, which was another 7 years. And so she's just starting the violet moon, which means she's just 14 years old. And so I'm going to start the prologue, and it's called Taken from Within. Luminous silent swells of the 7th indigo moon drenched the open belly of Florina's acacian tree. She and Rakely laid silently side by side on the fiber-filled mattress. Florina knew her time spending the night with her best birth friend in her acacian tree was diminishing like the indigo moon. The next turn of the moon would introduce the violet moon. The blue light would pass away with Florina's youth, not to be seen again until Florina was the age of her father. She and Rakely would perform their double moon ceremony under the first violet moon and become novice elders of Right River Hook. Are you still happy you chose dance as your adoration for our double moon ceremony? She heard Rakely ask from beside her. Florina said nothing for several seconds. Her birth friend knew her too well. She had felt what Florina was silently thinking. Yes, I wanted to choose dance, Florina said, trying to sound confident. But you are a singer, Rakely said. Your mother's very upset that you still dance. She believes you would have given up many moonrises ago. Dance is a difficult adoration for me, Florina admitted, but my body is finally learning the 44 images of Yashin. Besides, singing offers me no challenge. Florina forced a smile and gently nudged her friend with her shoulders. Your mother was right. You are the best singer in all of Right River Hook. Our village doesn't need another beautiful voice. I will stay with dance as my adoration. Silence filled the acacian tree once more. Rakely shifted on the mattress. The violet moon will greet us soon, and we will no longer be younglings. I wonder if the violet moon will match the color of your eyes, Florina said. You and your mother are the only ones with such color in our village. And you and your mother are the only ones with gray eyes, Rakely added, a sign that our mothers are sand shapers. Florina sighed. My mother is ashamed of who she is. She weaves twigs through her hair to look like us. I believe she would change the color of her eyes too if she could. She only wants to be seen as a river dweller. I understand why she would, Rakely added. Our village has always been uneasy about our mothers being sand shapers. They speak acceptance with their words, but their actions say otherwise. Florina pushed up against the side of her acacian tree and leaned upon one elbow. She looked down at Rakely. I don't sense any misgivings from them. That is because your father is both the healing and the spiritual elder of our village. They hide their feelings well before your family. But me with a single mother, it is different. It doesn't matter now, does it? Florina noticed a slip of tears sliding down Rakely's cheek. Your spirit still aches for her. I couldn't make her better. The smoke sickness slowly stole her away from me, and I couldn't stop it. She is in her eternal dwelling now with Rodesh, under all 6 colored moons. No more coughing up blood and staying in her acacian cluster from the rise to the fall of the heat source. She is at peace, Florna said, pulling words from her eternal memory that now held the divine oracle. I know your words are true, Rakely nodded, but her absence is like an empty acacian hole in my spirit. I am here, Florna whispered. Rakely gave a wisp of a smile. I know, and you are squashing me into my side of the acacian tree. Florna, you are so tall that you have to sleep with bended knees that poke into my side. You need a bigger tree. It is a curse having a father who is so tall, Florna laughed softly. I give many voiceless words to Rodesh that I'm done growing. Florna heard movement. What was that? A yellow torch hovered just outside her hole. Someone is out there, Rakely whispered. I have found the location, a shout ricocheted through the forest. I don't recognize that voice. Florna looked through the acacian hole. Streaks of yellow light interrupted the indigo glow outside. I see torchlight. Florna crawled out of her hole and Rakely followed. A man with tan skin and dark hair stood in front of the dwindling hearth fire. His horns had been extracted. He was a sand shaper. He pointed his torch towards Florna's face, and she blinked from the brightness. Then he moved the torch towards Rakely's face and stared intently. She is here, he yelled again. I have found her. What is going on? Florna's father said once he crawled out of his acacian tree. What are you doing on my land? I was sent by my master to find his granddaughter, and I have found her. My master demands that she be returned to him. Florna's mother crawled out and stood beside her husband. He is a servant of Sahara's father. It is as we feared. I see more torches along the river. She looked toward Rakely. Your grandfather has sent his servants to take you back to him. Rakely stumbled back. I will not go to the northwestern coast. I am not a sand shaper. Florna grabbed her friend's hand. I will not let them take you. The torchlights in the distance grew brighter. The lights traveled away from the river's edge and upland toward Florna's acacian cluster, like a band of glowing-eyed predators. Florna squinted. What is that they carry? I can't believe it, Tamia said. It is his traveling case. Rakely, your grandfather has come himself to fetch you. Florna watched the faces of the sand shapers grow clearer as a yellow light from their torches overpowered the glow of the indigo moon. The traveling case rested upon 2 great poles protruding from the back and the front of the case. 2 men on each of the 4 corners carried the weight of the poles. A large portion of fabric hung on the side of the case, hiding whatever was within. Hornless men walked around the traveling case carrying torches. The heat of their fires became uncomfortable as they entered her acacian cluster. In a moment, Florna and her family were surrounded. The traveling case stopped, and the man who had shouted walked to the fabric and slid it to the side, revealing the opening. He reached in and grasped the arm of another. Florna watched as an aged, hornless man was carried out of the traveling case and onto the grassy land of her acacian cluster. The servant brought him directly to Rakely. She knew instantly that he was Rakely's grandfather. They had the same light tan skin and violet eyes. His hair had turned silver, though. Rakely's hair had the youthful dark luster of the river flowing at night. Did you check her eyes? The old man asked. Yes, they are violet like yours, he said. The other girl has gray eyes. Did you want them both? The aged man looked at Florna and shook his head. No, she is no kin to me. He looked back at Rakely. It is time for you to come home. Florna desperately held onto Rakely's wrist. No, you can't take her. The grandfather leaned toward Florna, his face only a finger's length away from her own. I was told about you, he whispered, staring into her eyes. Such a waste. Do not speak such words to my daughter, Jacorin said, stepping beside Florna. The grandfather straightened his stance. He looked from Jacorin to Timea and then pointed at Florna. Make sure this girl doesn't go to the coast looking for my granddaughter. She's better off staying in this petty village. He looked to his servant. Get her and put her in with me. The servant walked to Rakely and stole her into his arms, but Florna clutched her wrist. No, father, stop him. There is nothing I can do, Florna, Jacorin said. He is her grandfather. She no longer has family in the village. He has the right to take her. Florna looked at her mother, but she had covered her eyes and begun weeping. Suddenly, Florna's feet began to slide along the ground as the servant started walking back to the traveling case with Rakely in his arms. No, she's a river dweller. She will get smoke sickness on the coast. Don't take her from me. Don't take her. Florna held on tighter. The servant tried to put Rakely into the traveling case, but he couldn't lift the weight of both her and Florna. You must let her go, he shouted. Never! Rayash, help me! Let go of my granddaughter, the aged man shouted. He looked at Jacorin. Make your daughter let go. Jacorin shook his head. I will not be the one to separate them. Fine, he said. Then he pointed at two servants nearest him. Release the girl's fingers from my granddaughter and keep her away from us. The two men came up and pulled Florna's fingers from Rakely's wrist, releasing her grip. The servant holding Rakely immediately put her in the case. Then he hoisted the old man into the case after her. The men carrying the poles moved quickly away from the acacian cluster. Florna tried to run away after the traveling case, but the two men blocked her way. Every time she tried to get around them, they would move to prevent her from getting by. Rakely, come back to me. Don't let them take you away. Find a way to come home. Don't forget me. She finally fell to her knees weeping. The yellow lights of the torches dissipated, and the glow of the indigo moon returned. Rakely and the sand-shapers were gone. Florna felt an ache in her heart, like a giant acacian hole had been dug deep within her. And that is the end of the prologue. So I hope you join me on the rest of the adventure of Florna of Rodesh. And it's the first book of the Violet Moon series.